Number 3. Bob Manor. In early 2018, 55-year-old Ray Wright lived in Rockland, California. He was twice divorced. He was a father and grandfather. Ray was a master cabinet maker. He owned and operated a carpentry shop in Rio Linda, California, which is about 15 miles southwest of Rockland. On January 11, 2018, Ray's family couldn't reach him, which was very unusual. They went to his home and his shop. He wasn't at either place, and neither was his pickup truck. Ray was a recovering alcoholic. He was sober at the time, but his family thought it was possible he went off on a drinking binge. However, it was odd that he had not contacted anyone in his life. The last time he relapsed was in 2011 after his second divorce. At the time, it's believed he felt he had hit rock bottom. But in early 2018, Ray was in a good place. He loved being a grandfather. He had built his granddaughter a custom crib. On the afternoon of January 13, 2018, 2 days after Ray went missing, his brother, Dean, went to his home. Dean let himself in and he smelled marijuana smoke. He thought it was strange because Ray didn't smoke marijuana. Dean saw a strange man in his brother's kitchen. The man advanced towards him, then ran out the back door. Dean called the police. Dean told the police that his 55-year-old brother had been missing for 2 days, and he had just discovered a strange man in his brother's home. On the kitchen counter of Ray's home, the police found a soda cup. It had ice and soda in it, and there was condensation on the outside. Therefore, it had recently been brought into the home. DNA was found on the straw, and the man's profile was created. It was uploaded to CODIS. 10 days after Ray went missing, his truck was found parked in the parking lot of an apartment building in Sacramento, California. Sacramento is about 11 miles south of where Ray was last seen. In the back of the truck, they found bloodstains. A DNA sample was collected from Ray's toothbrush. It was determined that the blood in the back of the truck was Ray's blood. His license plate and radio were missing. For several weeks, there was no progress in the disappearance of 55-year-old Ray Wright. The police noted that there was no activity on his phone or bank account. Months later, in April 2018, the police got a new lead. They were alerted to a hit on the DNA. It belonged to a man named Victor Merle Gray. At the time, Gray was in jail. About 2 weeks after Raymond went missing, on January 27, 2018, California Highway Patrol officers tried to pull Gray over because he was driving while intoxicated. Gray did not pull over. He led the police on a high-speed chase with speeds reaching over 100 miles per hour. It ended when Gray slammed his van into a car with a couple inside of it. Gray was pinned in the vehicle with a broken leg. He was extracted and he was arrested for felony evasion and driving under the influence. The couple in the other car were in bad shape. Exact details could not be found, but one article said that the man suffered a brain injury which put him into a coma and he suffered paralysis. It's unknown whether the paralysis was temporary or permanent. It's unknown what happened to the woman in the car, but both did survive their injuries. The police examined the van that Gray was driving when he crashed. One thing they noticed was that the registration tag on his license plate did not belong to Gray. The registration tag belonged to Ray Wright. The police searched Gray's van. Inside, they found several items rolled up in a black tarp. This included a baseball hat with Ray Wright design embroidered on it. That was the name of Ray's company. There was also a yellow rain jacket he had worn for about 15 years. It was drenched in blood. DNA testing was done, and it was Ray's blood. Ray's cell phone, which was destroyed, and his wallet with his driver's license were also in the tarp. There was also a pair of broken eyeglasses, which Ray's family identified as his. Victor Gray's cell phone was in the van. The police looked through his photos, and they found something unusual. It was a photo of a 3-page handwritten letter addressed to someone named Bob. In the letter, Gray complains that he wasn't paid for, quote, delivering the dude to you, unquote. He also wrote, quote, I'm done waiting and need a fat package today, unquote. Gray also wrote that he, quote, hand-delivered you your revenge, unquote. The police quickly concluded that Gray was involved in Ray Wright's disappearance. According to Gray's letter, he kidnapped Ray at the behest of a man named Bob. Who was Bob, and why did Bob want to hurt Ray? The police continued to look through Gray's cell phone. They found a text message conversation between Gray and a contact he called California Katie. California Katie seemed to be monitoring Ray and would give updates on what he was doing. This included the morning Ray went missing. That morning, she texted Gray to tell him that Ray was alone at the shop. The police realized that California Katie was Katie Bernard, who lived in a trailer 30 feet from Ray's workshop. In October 2018, about 10 months after Ray went missing, the police interviewed Bernard. She said that she believed Gray wanted to steal Ray's truck or rob him, and that's why she was watching him. But then, after Ray went missing, she realized Gray probably had something to do with it. Bernard also knew who Bob was. He was her ex-boyfriend, Robert Bob Manor. She said that Ray and Manor were involved in a car crash years earlier. The police knew about the collision. 6 years before Ray went missing, in November 2011, he was having a rough time. His second marriage had fallen apart. He relapsed and was drinking heavily. One night in November 2011, he got behind the wheel of his pickup truck. Bob Manor was driving to see his father, who was in poor health. The woman, who was his wife at the time, was in the car with him. Ray collided with Manor's car. Manor's wife was nearly killed. Manor was left with a permanent limp and chronic pain. For driving under the influence, Ray was sentenced to 18 months in jail. He was also ordered to pay $275,000 in restitution to Manor and his wife. Ray served his sentence, but he did not pay much of the restitution. The police knew who Bob Manor was. He was a methamphetamine dealer who had served time for selling drugs and assault. The police talked to another woman Manor dated, Tessa Trimble. Trimble was a massage therapist who Manor got treatment from after he was in the car crash. The relationship eventually turned romantic. Trimble said that Manor was obsessed with Ray. She said he spent nights on the internet trying to find out where Ray lived. After Ray disappeared, both Katie Bernard and Tessa Trimble said that Manor talked about the murder. He used a very specific phrase. Manor said, quote, I got him, unquote. The police questioned a man who regularly bought drugs for Manor. In an article on the Sacramento News and Review website, the man is only identified as James. James said he stopped by Manor's home shortly after Ray went missing. James also said that Manor said, quote, I got him, unquote. The police thought that this was interesting because Bernard, Trimble, and James did not know each other, but they all said that Manor told them he got him. They also knew that when he said that, he was talking about Ray Wright. The prosecutor talked to a man who was a cellmate of Victor Gray after he was arrested for the DUI and evading the police. The cellmate also knew Bob Manor. After talking to him, the police pieced together what they believed happened to 55-year-old Ray Wright. As a result of Ray driving drunk and smashing into his car, Bob Manor walked with a limp and was still in pain every day, so he was constantly reminded of the crash. Ray also had failed to pay restitution, so Manor wanted revenge. He spent years looking for Ray. Then one day he went to Katie Bernard's home, either for a romantic fling or to sell her drugs, or both. Katie Bernard lived next to Ray's shop, and Manor happened to see him. Manor then hatched a plan to kidnap and kill Ray. He enlisted Victor Gray to kidnap Ray and deliver him. Bernard said that Gray told her he punched Ray in the face and somehow restrained his arms. He then got Ray into the back of his own truck. This explains why Ray's blood was found in the back of the truck. Gray also told Bernard and his cellmate they had poisoned Ray. Gray then took him to Manor's home. There were plastic sheets on the floor. A man named Mark Nyquist was there. According to the Sacramento News and Review, Nyquist was a member of the prison gang, the Aryan Brotherhood. He had served time in Federal Correctional Institution Leavenworth in Leavenworth, Kansas. Prison officials discovered that Nyquist and another inmate were planning to attack a correctional officer, so he was transferred to the Supermax prison ADX Florence in Florence, Colorado. Nyquist was friends with Manor and helped as muscle in his meth-dealing business. According to the jailhouse informant, Manor couldn't bring himself to pull the trigger when Ray was brought to his home. Instead, it's believed Nyquist was the one who killed Ray. Then the body was dismembered and they disposed of the remains. After Gray was arrested, he called his wife. He didn't say a murder was committed, but he said he had cleaned up for Manor and Nyquist. Victor Gray was expecting $10,000 for kidnapping Ray, but Manor never paid him. Earlier on the day, Gray was driving intoxicated and nearly killed 2 people. He wrote a letter to Manor demanding the money. The letter was dated the same day as the crash. It's unclear if Gray gave Manor the letter, but he did take a photo of the 3 pages. It's believed that Gray kept evidence from the kidnapping and murder as a form of insurance. Gray, possibly bolstered by alcohol and drugs, decided to confront Manor and demand his money. He started driving towards Manor's home with a tarp full of evidence when he caught the police's attention. He didn't pull over and instead led the police on a high-speed chase. He crashed and he was arrested. This led to the evidence being found. The police never found out why Gray was in Ray's home 2 days after Ray went missing. In March 2021, 3 years after Ray Wright went missing, Bob Manor and Victor Gray were charged with murder. Mark Nyquist could not be charged because he had died of natural causes. Manor and Gray went to trial in March 2023. It was a difficult case for the district attorney to prosecute. One of their main problems was that Ray Wright's body had not been found. No body murder trials are difficult to prosecute because the defense can create reasonable doubt by pointing out there's no evidence that the victim is even dead. There was physical evidence that connected Victor Gray to Ray's disappearance, like the items found in his van, Ray's registration tag on his license plate, and Gray's DNA was found in Ray's home. However, there was no physical evidence that connected Bob Manor to the murder. The prosecution pointed out, though, that Manor did have a motive to kill Ray. Manor wanted to get revenge because Ray had crashed into his car while he was driving drunk. The crash permanently disabled him and gave him chronic pain. The prosecution had 4 main witnesses: Katie Bernard, who lived next to Ray and was Manor's ex-girlfriend; Tessa Trimble, another of Bob's ex-girlfriends; James, a drug addict who bought meth for Manor; and Victor Gray's former cellmate. 3 of the witnesses had major credibility problems. Bernard and James both abused meth. Also, jailhouse informants are not considered reliable witnesses. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Bob Manor and Victor Gray were found guilty of first-degree murder. They were both sentenced to life without the chance of parole. At the time of this recording, 54-year-old Victor Gray is serving a sentence at the Sierra Conservation Center in Jamestown, California, and 55-year-old Bob Manor is incarcerated at the California State Prison Solano in Vacaville, California. The remains of 55-year-old Ray Wright have never been found. Number 2. Stephen Roy Harper. In September 1978, Sally and Bruce Shelton lived in Omaha, Nebraska. The couple had an 11-month-old son, Chad Shelton. On the evening of September 10, 1978, Sally, Bruce, and Chad all became very ill. Over the next 2 days, Chad's condition worsened. On September 12th, he was rushed to the hospital. He was bleeding from all his orifices. The doctors realized he was in liver failure. 2 days after being admitted to the hospital, Chad Shelton died. He was 3 days shy of his first birthday. Chad wasn't the only member of his family to be hospitalized. On September 15th, 3 days after Chad died, his uncle, 24-year-old Dwayne Johnson, and Dwayne's 2-year-old daughter, Sherry, were both admitted to the hospital. Dwayne was married to Sally's sister, Susan. They got sick on the same day as Sally, Bruce, and Chad, and they had the same symptoms. Bruce had a headache, muscle pain, chills, diarrhea, vomiting, and a bloody nose. Sherry was given a blood transfusion, and she survived. Tragically, her father, 24-year-old Dwayne Johnson, did not survive. The doctors were shocked by the deaths. They thought it was possibly the start of a deadly epidemic. The pathologists could not determine what made them sick. One thing the pathologist noted was that Dwayne, Chad, and Sherry all suffered significant liver damage, but there were no clues as to what caused the damage. The Center for Disease Control, also known as the CDC, was asked to assist in the case. The investigators learned that on September 10, 1978, the day they all got sick, Bruce and Sally had their carpets cleaned, they bought some new lamps at a furniture store, they went to Susan and Dwayne's home for a small family gathering, they attended a birthday party, and they picked up tacos from a takeout restaurant for dinner. No one else that they came into contact with outside their family became sick. The authorities thought that something in the carpet cleaner caused them to get ill, but that was quickly ruled out. Instead, they believed that something at Susan and Dwayne's home made them all sick. When Sally, Bruce, and Chad arrived at Susan's home, both Dwayne and Sherry were already ill. Dwayne had been painting the exterior of their house that day. The paint was tested, and nothing was found that could have caused them to get sick. The tap water was tested. Samples of soil, house paint, and insulation were taken. The experts thought that a fungal infection could have caused the illnesses, but nothing was found that explained what made them sick. They learned that everyone at the family gathering who drank lemonade from a pitcher in the fridge or some milk that was in the fridge got sick. Dwayne and Sherry each had a glass of milk at breakfast. Dwayne drank 2 glasses of lemonade when he took a break from painting. Shelley and Bruce both had lemonade, and Chad had some milk. So the investigators believe that the milk and the lemonade were the source of the illness. However, they could not say for sure because there was no milk or lemonade left to test. The pitcher the lemonade was in had been washed, and the milk container had been thrown out. The pitcher was tested, but nothing unusual was found. They also tested the ingredients used to make the lemonade. Once again, nothing was found. The police learned that Susan and Dwayne were not at home from about 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. the night before. They concluded that someone entered their home and poisoned the milk and the lemonade. One of the biggest problems was that there was no trace of poison in any of the victims' toxicology reports. So what poison was used, and who would want to hurt the family? After a few weeks, an expert at the CDC solved the mystery of what was used to poison the family. She believed it was a rocket fuel additive called dimethylnitrosamine, also known as DMN. DMN is a cancer-causing agent. It's used in cancer research on laboratory animals. The body metabolizes it quickly, and traces of DMN leave the body within hours of ingesting it. This would explain why they couldn't find any traces of poison in the bodies. The problem was that there was no definitive proof that the victims were poisoned with DMN. Dr. Ronald Schenck was a cancer researcher at the University of California at Irvine. He was researching how carcinogens like DMN affect our DNA. Dr. Schenck said, quote, "Dimethylnitrosamine attacks the DNA of the liver cell, and it leaves a chemical footprint on the DNA. That footprint will lead to a mutation which starts the cancer process," unquote. Dr. Schenck was sent 8 liver samples so he could examine their DNA. He said that one of the liver samples had been affected by DMN. That liver sample belonged to Dwayne Johnson. This was enough proof that the family had been poisoned with DMN. But who would have poisoned them and why? The police looked at their reports and a suspect stood out. He was 24-year-old Stephen Roy Harper. Harper was a former boyfriend of Dwayne's wife, Susan. When Harper was a toddler, he was burned in a house fire. This left him with scars, and he was self-conscious and shy. He did not have many friends and didn't date much. He and Susan started dating in 1973. They had known each other since high school. Susan was his first girlfriend, and he had intense feelings for her. In late 1974, Susan ended the relationship with Harper. Months later, in January 1975, Susan married Dwayne. In June 1975, 6 months after they were married, Susan, Dwayne, and several of Susan's family members were standing outside Susan's mother's home. Harper pulled up in front of the house and argued with Susan's brother. Harper then fired a shotgun at the group. Susan's mother and brother were hit with pellets but survived. Harper was arrested and pleaded guilty to shooting with intent to kill, wound, or maim. He was sentenced to 1 to 5 years of prison. He served about a year, and he was paroled in November 1977, about 11 months before the family was poisoned. The police learned that Harper started working at the Epley Institute for Research in Cancer and Allied Diseases in Omaha in March 1978. At his job, he had access to DMN. On August 18, 1978, 3 weeks before the family was poisoned, Harper quit his job. The police talked to Harper's veterinarian. In August 1978, weeks before the murders, he brought his dog and cat in because they were sick and had unexplained bleeding. The veterinarian had never seen anything like it before. The animals died within days of being brought to the veterinarian. The police also talked to a friend Harper made in prison. They had kept in contact after they were both released. Harper told his friend he had access to powerful poisons at work. He told them he had tested some drugs on his cat and dog, and they both died. A few days before the murder, Harper said he was going to poison Susan's food. He planned on poisoning something in their refrigerator. He was still bitter that she left him and married Dwayne, so he wanted to get revenge by killing her. The police got a search warrant for Stephen Harper's home. In the garage, they found evidence of animal testing. They also found 2 vials from Harper's former workplace. One of them contained traces of DMN. On October 12, 1978, a month after the family was poisoned, An arrest warrant was issued for Stephen Harper. The next day, he was arrested at an airport in Beaumont, Texas. It's believed he was trying to flee the country. Stephen Harper went to trial in September 1979. The prosecution said that Harper hatched the plan to kill Susan after reading a newspaper clipping on his work's bulletin board. It was about a German chemist who poisoned his wife with DMN. The prosecution contended that Harper wanted Susan to die a slow death from cancer, but he got the dosage wrong. Susan had tried the milk and lemonade, but spit them out because she thought they tasted funny. Dwayne drank a large quantity of DMN, which is why he died, while Chad was small and his body couldn't handle the DMN. The trial lasted 3 weeks, and the jury deliberated for 12 hours. Stephen Harper was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of poisoning with intent to kill, wound, or maim. In November 1979, Harper was sentenced to death. On December 6, 1990, while on death row, 37-year-old Stephen Harper took his own life. The poisoning had a tremendous effect on the survivors. Dwayne and Susan's daughter, Sherry, was left with permanent liver damage that caused her lifelong health problems. Chad's parents, Sally and Bruce, divorced after his murder. Bruce became addicted to alcohol. He eventually lost his job and became homeless. He died in 1995 at age 38. Sally remarried, but she never wanted to have more children. She was terrified she would develop cancer and would not be around to raise the children. Sally died in September 2014 at age 57. Her cause of death is unknown. Number 1. Eric Williams. In early 2013, 57-year-old Mark Hassey was an assistant district attorney in Kaufman County, Texas. Kaufman County is in northeast Texas. In 2013, it had a population of around 108,000 people. Mark had previously been an assistant district attorney in Dallas County. He started working at the Kaufman District Attorney's Office in 2010. He was the head of the organized crime unit. He was considered a talented prosecutor who liked taking on tough cases. On January 31, 2013, just before 9 a.m., Mark parked his car in a lot about a block from the courthouse at Kaufman. As he was walking to the courthouse, a man in a black Halloween mask and black clothing approached him and shot him multiple times. The gunman then ran to a waiting car, a 2001 Mercury Sable, and escaped. No one got a good look at the getaway driver. 57-year-old Mark Hassey was taken away in an ambulance, but he was later pronounced dead. The police had no shortage of suspects. He had been a prosecutor for 25 years in both Kaufman County and Dallas County. In Kaufman County, he had been in charge of prosecuting organized crime cases. This included a lot of gangs and white supremacist groups. The leading theory was that the prison gang, the Aryan Brotherhood, was responsible for the murder. But the police never found evidence that they arranged the murder. They also didn't find any other evidence that connected anyone else to the murder. Mark Hassey's boss, Kaufman County's district attorney, was 63-year-old Michael McLeland. He was elected to office in 2010, the same year Mark joined the district attorney's office. Michael lived in Telty, Texas, with his 65-year-old wife, Cynthia. Cynthia was a psychiatric nurse. On March 30th, 2010, 2 months after Mark Hassey was killed, friends of the couple went to their home. They found the couple dead. It's believed that they were shot to death just after dawn. 65-year-old Cynthia was shot 8 times, and Michael was shot 16 times. They were shot with 223 caliber bullets, which are commonly used in AR-15 rifles. It was clear that Michael McLeland was the target. The police were investigating on the assumption that their murders were connected to the murder of Mark Hasse. In the past 100 years, only 13 prosecutors were murdered in the entire United States. So it was literally unheard of that two were killed in the same month from the same office. The police still considered the Aryan Brotherhood responsible. They also checked on how many cases Mark Hasse and Michael McLellan worked on together. There was only one case. It was regarding a man named Eric Williams. Eric didn't go to trial for anything too serious, like a violent crime or drugs. He was not a gang member or a member of a white supremacist group. He was a member of Mensa. He had served in the Army and the Texas National Guard. He was a former attorney and Justice of the Peace, which is another term for judge. He was elected to Justice of the Peace in November 2010. 6 months after Eric was elected, in May 2011, members of the courthouse IT team came into the IT office. They noticed that 3 Dell computer monitors were missing. The police reviewed surveillance footage, and they saw Eric take the monitors when the courthouse was closed. 2 of the monitors were found in his office, and another was found in his truck. Eric admitted he took the monitors, but he had a good reason. He said they were to conduct hearings over video conferencing. The 2 were in his office for him and his staff, and he was planning on taking the 3rd monitor to the jail. He just had not done it yet. He knew he should have gone through the proper channels, but he had a strained relationship with the IT department. He just took the initiative and did it himself. District Attorney Michael McLellan said that Eric had stolen the monitors. Michael publicly said, quote, "The credibility of the courthouse," unquote, was at stake. The value of the 3 monitors was about $600. Eric Williams was arrested and charged with theft. He was offered a plea deal where he could plead guilty to a misdemeanor. If he did that, he would have lost his job as a judge, but he would have kept his law license. If he went to trial, he would be charged with theft of a building and theft of more than $500 and less than $1,500 by a public servant. These were felonies. If he were convicted of a felony, he would lose his law license. He would also face up to 2 years in jail. Eric did not want to plead guilty. He countered that he would leave his position as Justice of the Peace and pay a $600 fine. District Attorney Michael McLellan refused the offer. In March 2012, Eric Williams went to trial for the theft of the 3 monitors. Eric's defense was that he didn't steal the monitors because he was using them for county work. He also alleged that the trial was a witch hunt. His lawyer claimed that District Attorney Michael McLellan had a personal vendetta against Eric. In 2006, Michael was running for district attorney. Eric publicly supported a different candidate. Before the election, Eric had wrote a letter that was published in a local newspaper in which he implied that Michael left his last job at Children's Protective Services because of a conflict of interest. Eric also questioned Michael's Republican credentials. Michael claimed he was a lifelong Republican, but Eric said that Michael ran to be a judge in Corpus Christi, Texas, as a Democrat. Michael McLellan lost that election. Mark Hasse, who was prosecuting Eric's case, said that there was no conflict of interest. However, Michael was the second chair on the case. Mark said that Eric's theft of the monitors was evil. The jury found Eric Williams guilty. Mark Hasse argued for the maximum sentence, 2 years in prison. But the judge sentenced Eric to 2 years of probation, 80 hours of community service, and he was given a $2,500 fine. Since he was convicted of a felony, he was removed from office as a Justice of the Peace and lost his law license. Besides losing his job and his ability to make money by being a lawyer, Eric also lost his health insurance. Both Eric and his wife had health problems. So Eric Williams certainly had a reason to hold a grudge. Eric was questioned after Mark Hasse was shot. When he was questioned, Eric was wearing a sling. He said he had surgery on his rotator cuff. His hands were tested for gunshot residue and none was found. After the second murder, the police were sure that Eric Williams was the killer. The problem was that there was no evidence he committed the murders. The day after the murders of the McLelands, Coppin County Crime Stoppers received an email that started, quote, "Do we have your attention now?" unquote. The writer then demanded a response from a judge. The police wrote back an email saying, quote, "You have our attention," unquote. The person wrote back, giving details of the ammunition that was used to kill Mark Hasse. It was information only the killer or someone working with them would have known. The writer demanded that one of 4 judges in Kaufman County had to resign within the next few days, or there would be more murders. None of the judges resigned, and no one was killed. The police talked to the McLelands' neighbors. Several of them saw a white Crown Victoria in the neighborhood on the day of the murder. One of the neighbors had surveillance footage, and they recorded a white Crown Victoria on the streets. However, they could not see the license plate when they reviewed the footage. Eric Williams refused to talk to the investigators. However, he did talk to the media. He had messages of sympathy for the families. Then, 12 days after the McLelands were killed, Eric had a change of heart and agreed to talk to the investigators. He claimed he had nothing to do with the murders. He also said he only owned one gun and he was trying to sell it. He agreed to let the police search his home. They found parts of guns and ammunition. Since he was a convicted felon, he was not allowed to have parts of guns and ammo, so the police got a search warrant. In a home office, they found a scrap of paper with W695-196 written on it. The police realized what the letter and number sequence was. When Crime Stoppers received a tip, they gave the person who submitted the tip a unique code. The code starts with a letter and is followed by 6 digits. The code on the scrap of paper matched the code for the email, which contained the information about the ammunition that killed Mark Hasse. The police also found a title for a white Crown Victoria that had recently been purchased under an alias. Eric Williams was arrested and charged with making deadly threats. The arrest made headlines, and a friend of Eric saw the news. He contacted the police and told them he had rented a storage unit in his name, but Eric was the one who used it. The police went to the storage unit. Inside, they found a white Crown Victoria. They also found over 70 guns and lots of ammo. This included 2 .23 caliber bullets, which are the type of bullets used in the murder of the McLelands. The police also found homemade napalm, a Molotov cocktail, tactical gear, and a sheriff's patch that could be attached to a bulletproof vest. However, none of the guns were the murder weapons. They found 2 lower parts of AR-15 rifles with no matching upper parts. The upper part of the rifle makes the marks for ballistic testing. Another friend of Eric's contacted the police. He said that he and Eric met for lunch several weeks before the murder of Mark Hasse. Eric wanted to know if his friend could make the upper portion of a rifle disappear if he gave it to him. The friend felt uncomfortable and didn't respond. In the parking lot of the storage unit, the police found a second car registered to Eric. It was a 2001 Mercury Sable, the same type of car used in the murder of Mark Hasse. On April 18, 2013, Eric Williams was arrested for the 3 murders. His wife, Kim Williams, was also arrested. She told the police her husband was the shooter. She directed the police to a lake where they dumped the gun used to shoot Mark Hasse and the mask Eric wore during the shooting. The gun was registered to Kim. Kim made a plea deal with the district attorney. In exchange for 40 years in prison, she would testify against her husband. Eric Williams went to trial in December 2014. The evidence against him were the 2 cars found at the storage facility. Another major piece of evidence was the paper with the Crime Stopper number that was linked to the email about the murder that contained details only the killer would have known. There was also the gun used to kill Mark Hasse that Kim led the police to and was registered to her. Eric's wife Kim testified. She said that Eric was very angry about being convicted and he vowed to get revenge. At first, she didn't take him seriously. He then started making napalm and buying things like bolt cutters and guns. She said she was the driver in the shooting of Mark Hasse. She said that Eric was excited before the shooting. Afterward, he was happy and satisfied. She was in the car when the McLelands were shot. He was dressed like a police officer when he went to their front door. To celebrate their murders, they had steaks for dinner. Kim said that Eric had plans to kill other people. He wanted to kill Michael McLeland's predecessor as district attorney. She had angered Eric years earlier when Eric was a lawyer and she was a judge. She had reprimanded him for overcharging the county. Eric also wanted to kill a judge who had been friends with him. He believed that the judge told investigators he was the one who stole the monitors. Kim said that Eric planned to shoot him with a crossbow, then bore his stomach out and fill it with napalm. Eric's trial lasted 3 days. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Eric Williams was found guilty and he was sentenced to death. At the time of this posting, 58-year-old Kim Williams is incarcerated at the William P. Hobby Unit in Marlin, Texas. She'll be eligible for parole in April 2032 when she'll be 66 years old. 57-year-old Eric Williams is on death row at the Alan P. Polensky Unit in West Livington, Texas. Thank you so much for watching today's video. We just want to remind you we started a channel membership where half the funds will go to solve a cold case. For more information, click on the video that's on the screen now. Well, that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.